Hello, Bo enjoyers! This is my build update for Tornado Shot in the Crucible League, or Lightning Arrow or Ice Shot, but I've been doing Tornado Shot, although I did try Lightning Arrow after the third lab and it was very enjoyable, but I quickly stepped away from that and wanted some better experience with Tornado Shot. Although I must say I did not have Vengeance Cascade because I've been playing group self-found with a couple of my friends. And you might be wondering, well, hey, it says Crucible League up there. Are you lying to us? No, it's self-imposed rules. We're playing in Trade League, but we're not trading or interacting with anybody, just the 5 of us or 6 of us. And yeah, that's my story about that. So it's also why I do not have yet all the uniques I'd like on my build. I don't have Chaos Spirit, I don't have Immortal Flesh, and I don't have Vengeance Cascade, which means I would have tried Lightning Arrow or maybe even Ice Shot for a longer duration if I had Vengeance Cascade, but you know, 2 golden ores are pretty hard to farm by yourself. Also, I despise Blight, so that's another reason. Anyway, I was going to transition to Tornado Shot even if I had Vengeance Cascade. So just ended up not doing Lightning Arrow for too long. I think I swapped when I was in white maps. Progression wise, it's been a blast. The tree gives so much power. It was even quicker than I thought, having Master Fletcher and multi-shot. Before we go to the POB, let's do a quick map so you can see what the build looks like. This is pretty much, it's been a week now, but I've been chilling, hard chilling. So I'm only level 94. This is probably, other than the bow, it's probably around day 4 gear. So you have like some decent Eldritch Implicits here. You have a chance to intimidate, spell suppress here. So some decent Eldritch Implicits, something you could expect to have at day 4. We did find this quiver that I crafted with the accuracy rating essences. By the way, all of my gear is pretty much crafted with essences, especially this bow right here. And the Crucible tree, if you're wondering, it has Scorch and Pen on it pretty much. It also has Precise Technique, which saves me 1 point in the tree. So let's just go over and do a map really quick. Let's go. So that's what the build look like right now. I'm gonna include some footage also of some bosses that I did at the end of the video, but for now that's what the build looks like. Let's take a look at the POB, and also wait, no, before we go to the POB, I want to show you something that I've done. If you join the Discord, you might be aware of this. This is something which I've done in the FAQ channel. It's well, FAQ, but also one thing that I want to go over together right now is question number 9. I just entered map and my damage / survivability is starting to feel low. What should I upgrade first? This is the recommended upgrade path, and I think you should definitely stick to it. It's very precise. Speaking of precise, the first thing you should do when you're starting to feel that your damage is low is make sure your accuracy is still higher than your life, so that precise technique is working. Next up, you want to craft your flask. This is important, something that I forgot to put enough emphasis on before. We are investing points to make our flask stronger. Over here we do 2 points. We are investing some more points over here for flask effect duration, and then this flask mastery over here. All of this flask sustain means you should definitely have some great flask. You can see the flasks that I have are pretty good. I have some prefixes that increases the sustain of my flask. Alternatively, you could have the increased effect of your flask on a prefix. You could probably be sustaining those flasks despite the prefix that reduce the duration, but you should not have a suffix that reduces the duration of your flask. You should have suffixes that give you a lot of power, such as increased armor. And these mods on your flask, 55% increased armor, is then scaled up by your flask effect, which you gain 10-20% of. And then you have a 59% increased evasion here, and again, reduced charge per use. Quicksilver Flask, chance to gain flash charge when you deal a crit, although this does not work for me exactly, but it also comes with reduced effect of curses on you. And when scaled with the flask effect, curses are pretty much non-existent on me with only this flask right now. And then a jade flask with movement speed. So yeah, that's the first one. Craft your flask. Really important. I cannot understate how important crafting your flasks are. Even more important than these 4 flasks. If you're arriving into map, then the first flask you should craft an Enduring Eternal Mana Flask. This is a prefix on your mana flask. You need to alteration spam it until you gain the prefix, which is not present here. I don't know, let's roll it. It shouldn't take a lot of alteration. This one right here. Enduring Eternal Mana Flask. And then it can have any suffixes on there. You really won't have great suffixes on a mana flask. I think you could have some of them that are decent, like Blade Immune, and then you wouldn't need Blade Immune on your life flask. By the way, if you're looking to get Blade Immune on your life flask, you can just go on your menagerie and you can craft it right there. Yeah, I think the word is sealing. You type in sealing here, and you add of sealing, which is grant immunity to corrupted blood. This you can craft on a flask that has an open suffix. So yeah, crafting your flasks, very important. And next up, on your upgrade path, you want a Prism Weave, you want the carry reward, optionally with oils for cheap anoint. You can have some cheap anoints. The one that I see people do more often is taking Fury Bolts or Weathered Hunter. These are great these are great anoint at the early game. They only cost, this one is Verdant, Teal. Verdant are pretty free. Teal is probably also free. This one's Sepia, Amber, Teal, even cheaper than the other one, gives you resistances and accuracy, so it puts even less pressure on your gear if you have Weathered Hunter. Next up, you have highest elemental DPS bow you can afford. It's very simple. You just pretty much Essence of Hatred, Anger, or Wrath, and that's it. You get a good bow. Right now, you can use them. You can bake your bow with the Crucible, so like forge your bow. I don't know what the word is. You can bake your bow, and whenever you get some nodes that are decent, like maybe attack speed or pen or scorch, then you can use that base and craft it with some essences. Next up, you can look for Chaos Spirit plus Immortal Flesh. This will allow you to run Berserk. Then you can also have a Synthesis Ring with the implicit life gain per enemy hit with attacks. You just craft it with essences that give it either strength, intelligence, or chaos resistance. Next up, you want to look for a Watcher's Eye that has the modifier chance to evade attack while affected by grace. and hopefully you can get one that has higher than the lowest roll. I think the roll range is between 5 to 8. If you can get one that has 8, that's really good. I think they're going for 1 divine right now. Then you want to go for a Lethal Pride, which, by the way, if you remember, you put that in the socket right here. And when you do that, something that I forgot to mention is that it conquers the wind dance over here. It gets conquered, and you don't want to start having Chainbreaker on your build, so you unallocate Wind Dancer when you put in a Lethal Pride. By the way, Lethal Pride, you can have some good ones. There's some ways you can do it with the POB. I'm not going to go too much into that. Just know that even the bad one will probably give you some great stats. Like, it will give you a lot of strength. You can see this one is making me go from 168 strength to 274 strength. It's really crazy how much strength you get from just having a Lethal Pride over here, not mentioning that they could also be accompanied by some great modifiers. Then you want to work on Spell Suppress on your gear. This will allow you to drop at least Entrench, so 2 more points freed up right here, which you can eventually spec into Cluster Jewels. Also, I say Spell Suppress here, but it should also note with accuracy, so that you can also drop Acuity. And then with decent Eldritch Implicits. Eldritch Implicits are great on this build. I don't think I put any on the chest. If you are looking for Eldritch Implicits on your chest, you're looking for Aura Effect and Grace Effect. You can also look for Gain Endurance Charge every like 14 or 13 seconds. When you pair that up with Enduring Cry, it will make it much smoother. So another Eldritch Implicit which is really strong is Action Speed on your boots. And by the way, the enchant on your boot is also really strong. 10% movement speed if you haven't been it recently. We scale a lot of evasion, so this is a lot of movement speed. You should not forget about that enchant. If you need that enchant, you can run the lab yourself. It's not that uncommon. You might need to run like 5 or 6 lab to get that enchant. Or you can, buy it from somebody else that have been running lab. There's a lot of bases on trade. Maybe they won't be fractured bases, but I mean, you can have some great bases with enchant like Dragon Scale Gauntlets. I think this is the one I'm using. Yeah, I have Dragon Scale Gauntlet. You see, I haven't run the lab enough myself, so I have this crappy enchant with add lightning damage on it. But ultimately, I would want to have either movement speed like this one or penetration if you haven't killed recently, which is really great for bossing. Although this build is not a great bosser, having the boot modifier will help you when you need it. Another Eldritch Implicit, which is very important, is reduced mana cost of attacks on your helmet. Oh, by the way, Chaos Resistance, really important that it's at least positive, and that you take the Pantheon Arachne right here, Queen of the Great Tangle, which gives you plus 40% Chaos Res against damage over time. Most of the Chaos damage you take in this game comes from poison or caustic ground and such, so having this Pantheon right here is just really good. You need a large cluster. You can look for any notables on it, really. It doesn't matter too much. Notables of the large cluster are not that impactful. If you wanted some good ones, you would look for something like this one right here with Drive to Destruction, Feed the Fury, Martial Prowess. For the medium cluster, you will still be on Precise Technique, so you will not use Critical Strike medium clusters. You will stay on Projectile Damage medium cluster. Something you can do also, which I did not put in the POB, for medium clusters, is you can have a singular cluster that is not a projectile cluster. You can have a singular cluster that is a Flask Effect Duration cluster with Spike Concoction on it. And then you would choose between either Peak Vigor, which gives you life and life recovery from flasks, which is not too bad, or also Special Reserve, which will give you increased damage and life regen. The life regen translates to rage regen, so more berserk uptime. So you can also use one of these medium cluster. Medium cluster, by the way, remember they have to be between 4 and 5 passive. If you go to 6 passive, then you have to allocate 1 extra small useless node on them. Like this one is a 5 passive, so you can see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if it adds 6, then there would be a small useless node that would be right here. So to gain the jewel socket, I would need to spend 1 extra point. So anywhere between 4 and 5 passives for the medium clusters. And finally, but I wrote that twice, this should not be here. And finally, the Massive Thread of Hope. The Massive Thread of Hope is a big damage boost. I know right now they are expensive and they will keep getting expensive probably. as more and more people upgrade their build. But this is really, really, really good. Oh, by the way, I did a mistake here. This should be allocated. Hired Killer should be allocated in the POB. Maybe just drop this one node here and take Hired Killer instead. Or maybe just level up again, you know? Doing a lot of content fast. Leveling up should not be too hard. By the way, if you're wondering how you can level up with this build, 5 ways, but don't pay for them. Do them yourself. They're not expensive, are they? They used to be really cheap. Yeah, 3 chaos for this one. 3 chaos for this one. Oh yeah, I can see it on the right here. 5 chaos for the red one. And then 15 chaos for the yellow, 15 chaos for the green one. So on total, you're what is this? 35, 34, 41 chaos for a 5-way. 41 chaos for a 5-way. This is so cheap. You just do the 5-way yourself. You drop 1 or 2 jewel. You sell the jewel. It pays for the run. And on top of that, you gain a lot of experience. Definitely not as much as what the 5-way runners are getting, but still so much experience. Maybe even if you get only half of what you would get in a typical 5-way headhunter run, if you can just get half of that, this is just so much. And it's free. You don't have to pay for somebody to carry it for you. You can do it. This build is really strong for that. So yeah, before I let you go with some footage that I will have edited in there, like maybe some bosses and everything, before I let you go to that, I wanted to go over the PUB, which I'm releasing right now. It's the late game PUB. I'm still working on the Lightning Arrow late game PUB, sorry for that. But for now, I'm releasing the Tornado Shot or Ice Shot late game PUB, which is a Badge of the Brotherhood power charge stacking, Fizz to Cold conversion, abusing hatred, and eat Shiver to gain a lot of damage. You can see the damage is very respectable. We drop Artillery Ballista and we're still at 73 million DPS. We also have Rage Regen on our gloves. Well, not Rage Regen, we drop the Chaos Spirit, I mean Rage on hit. So if you were to use Berserk in some encounters, you would go up to over 100 million DPS on this version. But if you're looking to do pinnacle content, uber bosses and everything, I think this is the build you're looking for. And the reason we're going Badge of the Brotherhood, by the way, it was always a good variant to scale the damage on Tornado Shot, this Badge of the Brotherhood setup. But right now there is also a modifier on the Crucible tree, which gives you +2 maximum power charges at the cost of reducing your maximum endurance and frenzy. But in this case, the frenzy is equal to your maximum power, so it does not affect your actual number of frenzy charges. Furthermore, since your maximum amount of power is also equal to your maximum amount of frenzy charges, we can use this Forbidden Flesh and Flame setup that gives us the Avatar of the Slaughter, which gives us a lot of movement speed, but also attack speed and attack damage and evasion rating. Probably gonna be expensive after I release this. And they are also not core for this build. You can play this build without it. If I remove them, we go from 73 million to 62 million. So definitely not too mandatory. But if you don't use them, you should probably use another one. There's so many good nodes that you could take. Any of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sets of Forbidden Flesh and Flame are obviously good. Something we do here is we grab Infuse over here and we anoint one over here, overcharge. We don't grab this one here, it's too much point to get to. Also, if you're playing Ice Shot, then you would not grab this overcharge one, you would instead anoint Vengeance Cascade, obviously. Something else, you don't need a 12 passives here, a 12 passive large cluster. This is a very efficient cluster. You know, if you're going for one of those, you don't need 4 modifiers on it. Even if you only have 3 modifiers, it's pretty good. But if you don't go for one of those and you instead decide to go for one of the 8 passive cluster, then you can have an 8 passive cluster over here as well. And with the extra point that you gain from only having a 8 passive large cluster over here, you can put them into Herbalism over here. So that's the endgame POB for Tornado Shot and Ice Shot. As for Lightning Arrow, I will put it up for review in the Discord before I release it. So if you would like an avant-goût, make sure to be in the Discord. And on a final note, before I let you guys go to some bossing footage, I did not expect my build to become so popular. I am still working out this thing about YouTube and video editing. The support has been overwhelming. I am so thrilled. Thank you, really. And see you next time.
Do you believe in magic? Do you believe in magic? too, I'm just like you, and I need to fuck it up sometime. I'm stuck with ego trips and sex to another bar. Sometimes I feel magic, and I manage to fuck up